Hello, this is Mr. Collier, and today we're looking at powers and roots of numbers, including negative numbers and fractions. So firstly, we have what we call 3 squared, or 3 to the power of 2. That doesn't mean 3 times 2, that means 3 times 3. So 3 multiplied by 3, so we do it twice, and we get 9 here. So this 3 means we multiply 2 by itself 3 times, so we'll have 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8. Nextly, we have 10 to the power of 4, so that's just 10 times 10 times 10 times 10. And powers of 10 are pretty easy because you're just going to get here 4 zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 zeros. So it's 10,000. And powers of 1 are pretty easy too, because this is just 1 times 1 times 1 times 1, which equals 1. So 1 to the power of any number is going to give you 1, actually. Next, we'll have this one, and this is negative 4 in brackets, so that means the negative 4 is multiplied by negative 4, and we get positive 16. Okay, whenever you square a number, you'll get a positive number or 0. And here we have negative 2 cubed, that means negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2, which is, well, negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4, times this negative 2, that'll give us negative 8. Okay, next we have negative 4 squared. Now it's not the same as this negative 4 squared because it's not in brackets. So this means it's negative 4 squared. So we'll do the 4 squared first, and that's going to be negative 4 times 4, and that is negative 16. So this one gives us 16, this one gives us negative 16. And now negative 1 to the power of 6. Well, I know if it's an even power, I'm always going to get a positive answer because it's going to be negative 1 times 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 negative 1. So if I've got an even number of these things multiplied by each other, then I'm going to get a positive answer because negative times negative is positive, negative times negative is positive, negative times negative is positive. So I have positive 1 times positive 1 times positive 1 is just 1. Okay, nextly, we got some fractions. So half squared, that means half times half. You can also think of it as, well, let's write down half times half. It's also, you can think of it as 1 squared over 2 squared, right? You square the numerator and denominator. So it's a quarter. And here we have 2/3 cubed. So that's going to be 2 cubed out of 3 cubed, which is 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. 3 times 3 is 9 times 3 is 27. Okay, and the next one, we've got negative a quarter squared. So that's a negative a quarter times negative a quarter, which is positive 1 out of 4 times 4 is 16. Now this one is when it's a mixed number, it's almost always very much easier to change it to an improper fraction. So this is 3 out of 2. Oops. 3 out of 2, or 3 halves, to the power of 4, which equals 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 out of 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. So this on the top, this actually gives us 9 times 9, which is 81. And this on the bottom will give us 4 times 4, which is 16. So it's 81 out of 16. Now I couldn't simplify here, so you know your answer is in the simplest form, so I don't even need to think about that. Now for this, you could do 0.125 times 0.125. It might take you a bit, but it's a bit quicker if you recognize that this is 1/8 squared, which is 1 over, now 8 times 8 is 64, 1/64. Okay, next. Okay, we have a few squares here with the areas given. How do we find out what the side length is? Okay, so if it's 16, we know that if it's a square, we have the same sides all around, so we'd have this times this gives us 16. So what times what gives us 16? The answer is 4. Must be 4 on each side. Okay, that's where the in math we come up with this square root symbol. Square root of 16 means what are the side lengths of a square that can give you an area of 16. So square root of 16 is 4. Okay, because 4 times 4 equals 16. So when you find the square root, you're finding out what times itself gives you that number. So here the side lengths of this thing must be 3. So square root of 9 is 3 because 3 times 3 is 9. Now this one, we know that 3 times 3 is 9 and 4 times 4 is 16. So the answer here must be somewhere between 3 and 4. Okay, maybe it's 3.2, 3.3. We have to get a decimal or a fraction here, right? So to work out root 12, we're going to use our calculator right now, and it'll give you an answer for square root of 12. So many calculators are different. On this calculator, the square root symbol is right here. Just look for that square root symbol. I'm going to go second square root 12. So it'll give me this number. Now you notice it's not a pretty decimal. It's actually an irrational number, and the decimals go on forever. They're just displaying a few decimals here. So this number goes on forever. There's an infinite number of digits. But we can write approximately equal to, and I'll round it to a couple decimal places. 3.46. Okay, next. Okay, now we have a square with area negative 25. Now that's impossible, right? So it's also impossible to do the square root of negative 25. Okay, you can't have two numbers multiplied to give you a negative 25, right? If you have you can't get the same number multiplied by itself to give you negative 25. Because if you have the same number, if you have a negative times a negative, you'll get a positive. If you have a positive times a positive, you'll get a positive. There's no way to multiply a number by itself to get negative 25. So there is no answer. Or you can say maybe it does not exist. That's something we often say in math. It does not exist. Okay, square root of 100. What times itself gives you 100? That's 10. Square root of 1. What number times itself gives you 1? That's going to be 1, right? 1 times 1 equals 1. What number times itself gives you 0? 0. So these are some easy square roots. We can get square roots of fractions because we know that 2/3 times 2/3 gives you 4/9. Okay, so the answer would be 2/3 here. You can actually get the square root of the numerator and the square root of the denominator and get 2/3. And the same thing here. Square root of 1, square root of 49, 1/7. Okay. Nextly, we have some other roots. So when we're doing square root, it's actually a bit of a short way of writing it because this is actually a square root, right? What number times itself? So you could write a little 2 when you do square root, but most people don't. It means what number times itself twice gives you that number. So here, what number times itself 3 times gives you 8. What number times itself 3 times gives you 8? And that's 2, right? 2 times 2 times 2 equals 8. Right? So the answer here is 2. Alright, and it's called cube root here, because if you look at a 2 by 2 by 2 cube, the volume is going to be 8. 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. Now if we look at this, what number times itself gives you 1? That is going to be 1. Because 1 times 1 times 1 gives you 1. And actually any root of 1 is going to give you 1. Okay, next, what number times itself 4 times gives you 16? Well, it's going to have to be a really small number, right? So often when we see a big root like this, the answer is just 2, 3, or 4. In this case, it's just 2. Right? 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 gives you 16. We can get cube roots of fractions. So this is cube root of 8 out of cube root 27. And cube root of 8 we already saw is 2. And cube root of 27 is 3. 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. Next, we can actually get cube roots of negatives. We can't get square roots of negatives, so we can get cube roots because -1 times -1 times -1 equals -1. So if you have three things multiplied by each other, or three of the same thing multiplied by each other, you can get a negative number. So that's -1. Okay, so here we have cube root. You can do cube root of a negative. Your answer is going to be negative. And cube root of 64 is actually 4. 4 times 4 times 4 is 64. Okay, now fourth root of -16, just like square root, you can't do fourth root of a negative number. Okay, if this is an even number, then you can't do it, right? Because let's say if we have -4 times -4 times let's say we had -2 times -2 times -2 times -2. Well, that'll give you positive 16. There's no way to get a negative number when you're multiplying four negatives together. So there's no answer here. Okay, it does not exist. D and E does not exist. Okay, here we have fifth root. It's an odd number, so you can have an odd root of a negative number. So it's going to be, answer is going to be negative. And what number times itself 5 times gives you 100,000? 100,000 has 5 zeros, so this is actually 10, right? 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 is 100,000. So this is actually -10. -10 times itself 5 times will give you -100,000.